Listen, I love being a hater. I didn't watch Game of Thrones, I didn't watch Mad Men, and I didn't watch Breaking Bad. Until now. I'm just trying to explain why I'm making a video about Breaking Bad so long after the hype has died down, I guess. If you could even say that. But you know what? I don't have to explain myself to you. Just be grateful, okay? Because even as a hater who started Breaking Bad prepared to be thoroughly disappointed, I have to admit, it was like actually kind of good. Like really good, actually, and it pisses me off. And I want to talk about one of the things that I love the most about the show, Walter's downfall. How far did this mild-mannered high school chemistry teacher have to fall to meet his grisly end at the end of the show? Or maybe Heisenberg was always there, and the course of the show just served to reveal what was always lurking beneath the surface. I got news for you. I don't care who to. I got news for them. They are not your friends. The first episode of Breaking Bad paints a pretty pathetic picture of Walter. He's in what I can only describe as suburban limbo. He's working a dead-end job that barely covers his middle-class existence. He's got a beautiful wife and kid, but there's a surprise baby on the way that threatens to stretch their already thin finances to the breaking point, and he's already working a second job at a car wash to make ends meet. The catalyst that arguably sets the events of the show in motion is Walt's cancer diagnosis. It's not looking good for him. The cancer's pretty far along, and the cost of any viable treatment options are going to absolutely drown the white family that's already barely clinging to that middle-class status. And remember, this was in 2008. Obamacare wasn't signed into law until 2010. And even nowadays, our running joke is that GoFundMe is the closest thing most Americans have to healthcare. So this was basically a death sentence to Walter White. So you're thinking, damn, Walter's life is kind of just circling the drain, huh? No wonder he turned to cooking meth. He had no other choice. And from there, it's kind of like a tragicomedy of errors that sends him down the harrowing path toward Heisenberg, who we can consider Walt's final form of miserable depravity. That's like his ultimate low, our scale that we're using here, at least for today's lesson. Anyway, I think that's a pretty fair assessment for the average observer to make that, anyone would have fallen down this horrible path toward Heisenberg. But we're more than the average viewers, okay? We're smarter. We're special. So, what I would like to posit is that actually, Walter's moral downfall isn't really a downfall at all. It's more of a plateau. All right, come on. Let's go back to the pilot and break down what makes Walter such a sad little man specifically. It's an excellent pilot, by the way. The showrunners throw you right into the thick of it, depicting a beleaguered Walter White haphazardly steering an RV through the desert in his tidy whities. The dude is going through it. It's shocking, it's exciting, and it keeps you intrigued enough to keep watching so that you can figure out just how he ended up here. And then, of course, the episode flashes back to 3 weeks earlier so that you can do exactly that. Beyond being great TV, the pilot also succeeds in telling you exactly where Walter stands in 3 significant ways: his physical needs, his social needs, and his self-actualization needs. Keep that in mind as we navigate Walter's terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. We open on Walt's high school chemistry class, where he's making a valiant effort to make learning fun for the next generation of bright minds, but, it's high school. He tries to tell off one of the troublemakers in the class, but it's slightly undermined when Walt's at his car wash job and realizes he's polishing Chad's chrome rims, much to the delight of Chad and unnamed teenager with cell phone. Embarrassing. Also, his boss at the car wash is kind of a jerk. Then he comes home to a surprise birthday party, which is then upstaged by Hank, his DEA brother in law, who manages to insult Walter like 3 times in one exchange.
No, it's just heavy. That's why they hire men. Hey, it's not gonna bite you, all right? Looks like Keith Richards with a glass of warm milk. You got a brain the size of Wisconsin. We're not gonna hold that against you.
And then commandeers the party to make everyone watch his spot about a meth lab bust that they're spotlighting on the local news. Later, Walter collapses on the job, the car wash job, and they tell him he's got cancer and it's looking terminal. Yikes. So, yeah, dude's having a bad week. People really like to wax poetic about how shit Walt's life was at the start of the show as a way to say, again, well, of course the guy starts to unravel. Just look at the miserable little guy. But as miserable as his life seems, the pilot also establishes that it's not that bad either. To explore, let's break down Walter's basic human needs that we talked about a little bit ago and whether those needs are being met. The basics, this includes things like food, shelter, safety. The socials, this entails job security, property, health, interpersonal relationships, and the ever elusive self actualization, which is all about the hero's mental well being, his wants and desires, his ego. Let's talk about physical needs first. The pilot establishes that the whites, while not rich, are comfortably middle class. But he doesn't have health care. He can't afford medical treatment or nice things. Yeah, I know. That's what being comfortably middle class is in America. Welcome to the United States. But yeah, his situation is honestly not very unique at all. It's actually pretty standard. Now for social needs. And once again, Walt's pretty good. He has a stable job, he has a home, he has a domestic partner who cooks and cleans for him. They have a child that can pretty much take care of himself at this point. So if they were to have another child, it's not like they're going to be running around after 2 toddlers with 2 mouths to feed. They're the standard nuclear family, actually. It might not be what everyone wants, but it's the American dream. The one thing he is missing as of his diagnosis is health. But this is also pretty standard in a story. Our hero needs an inciting incident. No story begins with a guy who's happy, healthy, and surrounded by unconditional love and support. No good story, anyway. This, in and of itself, should be enough to spur our hero into action. But we still haven't delved into that last category, self-actualization. After all of his other needs have been met, what does our hero want for himself? Is he satisfied? Is he happy? Of course not. Walter hasn't been happy for a long time. He's had a chip on his shoulder ever since he left Gray Matter, the company that he started with his college buddies, and it's only grown bigger and more volatile as he's watched undeserving people pass him by while he remains stagnant. In his perspective, anyway. Like I said, the guy is living the American dream, but that's not enough for Walter, because it's not enough for him to be doing well. He wants to be doing better. Better than Hank, better than Elliot, better than those dickhead high school students at the car wash, better than everyone. And he wants you to know it, too. Here is where we get to the real root of Walter's problem. It's not the dead-end job, it's not the lackluster sex life, and it's not the cancer. Walter, at his core, is just a massive fucking dick. His students are unmotivated and they think they're better than him. Because, yeah, that's how high schoolers are. Chad sucks, but there are always going to be Chads. Are you going to let Chad run your life, Walter? Yeah, you gotta polish his big fancy car while he giggles at you from the sidelines, but you're doing a job, man. There's nothing inherently degrading about the job, as evidenced by all the people around him that are going about business as usual. But Walter's pride makes this moment unbearable to him. This is also the case when Hank upstages him at his own birthday party. Hank sucks, right? He's a jerk who thinks he's way funnier than he actually is. There's no reason Walt needs to feel inferior in any capacity, but he does. Hank is also a massive fucking dick, but unlike Walter, he's pretty upfront about it because with Walter, there's kind of this exterior of being above it all, while Hank doesn't quite have the self-awareness to even consider being above it all. With Hank, what you see is what you get. And what you got is a cop who sends selfies of himself posing with dead bodies to the group chat.
Hey, get a photo of me with this guy, all right? I'll stump you here. Make sure you get the stump in there.
And thinks showing up in khaki shorts and a button-up is business casual. He's like the personification of toxic masculinity. And Walter is obsessed with it. He scoffs at Hank's crass comments and rolls his eyes at his rude jokes, but it's only because Walter desperately wants to be everything Hank represents. In Walt's eyes, Hank is the apex of masculinity. He's got a tough guy job, he gets to carry a gun, he nabs the bad guys, and he acts like a complete jackass. Behold the peak of male performance. Damn. Masculinity is looking bleak, y'all. But not to Walt. To Walt, masculinity is everything. It's how you get respect. It's how you feel good about yourself. Ultimately, it's how you get power. And to a guy who thinks masculinity is power, Hank is the most powerful guy he knows. So if Walt wants to be on top, he's gotta get on Hank's level. No, that's not how Walter's rules of masculinity work. He's gotta beat Hank. He wants to subjugate him. Because what's more masculine than topping a guy? Walter's obsession with masculinity isn't just conjecture on my part. It's his character's biggest motivator and also his biggest weakness. And those around him recognize that and use it to their advantage. Take this exchange between Gus and Walter when Walter tells Gus that he wants to quit the meth game for good, right after Gus hires him on as his in-house meth cook. Obviously, this is not acceptable for Gus, whose plans for overthrowing the Salamanca Empire hinge on having his own supply of meth, independent of the cartel. But threatening people isn't really Gus's style. He himself has said,
I don't believe fear to be an effective motivator.
So instead, Gus uses Walter's greatest weakness against him.
Why did you make these decisions?
For the good of my family.
Then they weren't bad decisions. What does a man do, Walter? A man provides for his family.
This costs me my family.
When you have children, you always have family. They will always be your priority, your responsibility. And a man provides. And he does it even when he's not appreciated or respected or even loved. He simply bears up, and he does it because he's a man.
This was such a genius move on Gus's part. He plays on every single insecurity Walter has. Being the breadwinner, being strong, being a man. Even when Walter weakly tries to push back, saying that everything that he's done for his family up until now has made them despise him, Gus counters that it doesn't matter. Because being a man takes priority. Gus's whole argument falls apart like a house of cards if you interrogate it even slightly, and Walter knows that. He knows that deep down, if he continues this line of work, that it will not only continue to alienate him from his loved ones, but also directly endanger their lives by virtue of their proximity to him. But the validity of what Gus is saying doesn't really matter, because Walter wants to believe him. Gus is serving up all of Walter's desires on a silver platter, and Walter is eating it up. The superficiality of Walter's motivations become all the more apparent here. Everything Walter has claimed to want, everything he has claimed to be working for, stands in stark opposition to his actions. We realize that Walter's decisions up until now have never really been rational or driven by anything other than Walter's desperate desire to be powerful, to be a man. The pursuit of masculinity, of personal power, has been Walt's primary motivator from the very beginning, and the show does a fantastic job of communicating this to you. A perfect example is actually near the beginning of the show, when Walter first gets his cancer diagnosis. He doesn't have insurance to pay for treatment, and he definitely doesn't have the money to pay out of pocket. But he also refuses offers of help at every turn. When Elliot and Gretchen, Walter's old college friends and former business partners, invite him to return to the company with the added offer of fully paying for his chemotherapy and subsequent treatments, Walter doesn't think of this as a kind gesture from old friends who care for him. He interprets this as an insult, as pity from people who are looking down on him. They could have framed this in a way that supported Walter's perception, showed Elliot to be slimy and self-absorbed and out of touch, but everything we see of Elliot implies the opposite. During the gift opening scene, when Elliot is receiving opulent birthday gifts like signed electric guitars and exclusive new tech, Walter grows visibly uncomfortable and embarrassed because he knows the gift that he brought doesn't match up to the rest, and he's afraid of being humiliated publicly for bringing a low-value gift. But when Elliot gets to it, he seems genuinely touched by the gift, and instead takes the moment to highlight Walter's thoughtfulness and the sentimentality of the gift, transforming it from something worthless to something priceless. Even when Elliot is extending the offer to pay for Walt's treatment, it is a moment that could have easily come off as condescending or paternal, but he instead chooses to offer Walter a position at the company, with the health insurance being a part of the offer, circumventing any discomfort on Walt's end at accepting charity, which I personally thought was already going quite above and beyond what was expected of him, because I have never really ascribed to the idea that accepting aid from someone who's much more well off than you is shameful. They have the means, so why feel guilty or embarrassed about it? That's your money now. Walter's monologue here is very revealing.
What exactly did he say to you?
He offered me a job.
What?
Like some fig leaf, you know? Some face-saving bullshit that allowed me to generously accept his charity. And then when I turned that down, he flat out offered to pay for my treatment.
Okay, what did you say?
What do you think I said?
Why? Walt.
This quality of his doesn't change. If anything, it's exacerbated by the success he has as a masculine man. When he's talking to Saul about ways to launder all of his drug money, Saul suggests the ingenious idea of funneling it through Walter's son's charity website that he has put together to fundraise for his father's cancer treatments.
Anonymous donations. Do you have any idea how that makes me feel? Cyber begging. That's all that is. Just rattling a little tin cup to the entire world. I am not going to have my family think that some mystery benefactor saved us. No, cannot be blind luck or some imaginary relative who saves us. No, I earned that money. Me.
Not only does Walter not like the idea, because nobody would know that it was Walter's own money that he earned by being a breadwinner, but also he hates the idea, again, of accepting charity. I think Saul's response covers most of my thoughts.
Yeah, there's no deep-seated issues there.
Beyond just being really stuck up about it, it's also so weird that he doesn't even consider how sweet it is that his own son cares enough to even set this up. It takes a lot of planning and consideration and like coding skills. I mean, I guess I'm not much of a coder, but also this came out in like the 2010s. So not anybody could just, go to YouTube University and figure out how to set up a fundraising website for their sick dear dad. He doesn't even consider that. He's not touched or moved by the gesture. He's embarrassed and he's angry. This moment really shows how far removed Walter is from his stated intentions of wanting to protect and love his family. Because here's his family trying to love and protect him, and he doesn't want it. He pushes it away, he lashes out, and he's just a sad, pathetic old man about it. And it shows us that Walter is the same man he's always been: insecure, angry, and alone. Walter's circumstances and his ensuing actions over the course of the show did not make him Heisenberg. Heisenberg was always there. The events of Breaking Bad simply pulled back the facade to reveal what was lurking beneath the surface all along.